Commander Zekthara of the Galactic Coalition stood before the massive viewport of his inspection vessel, watching the human battleship drift silently through space. The enormous warship floated like a metal mountain against the star field, its dark hull scarred with battle damage from the recent conflict at Kepler 442. "Sir, the humans have granted us permission to board," reported his aide, Lieutenant Vashti. Her forearms trembled slightly as she spoke. "They're sending over the inspection protocols now." Zekthara's scaled hide rippled with unease. 3 months had passed since humanity had somehow defeated the Krell Dominion, the most feared military force in known space. The Krell had conquered 17 star systems in the past decade, their bioships tearing through Coalition fleets like paper. Yet a single human fleet had not only stopped them but completely destroyed their entire armada. The Coalition Council needed answers. How had these newcomers, who had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, managed such an impossible victory? Earth's representatives claimed they had simply fought harder. But that explanation satisfied no one. The Council demanded a full inspection of human military technology. "Ready the boarding party," Zekthara ordered. "Full sensor sweeps, tactical analysis teams, and bring the xenobiologists. I want to know everything about how humans wage war." The boarding shuttle approached the human vessel's docking bay. Zekthara studied the ship's exterior through the shuttle's sensors. The hull plating looked standard enough. Titanium steel alloys common throughout the galaxy. The weapon ports seemed normal, though perhaps more numerous than typical. Nothing immediately explained how this ship had punched through Krell bioarmor that could withstand antimatter torpedoes. The docking bay doors opened with mechanical precision, and Zekthara felt his first surprise. The bay was enormous, easily 3 times larger than necessary for a ship this size. Rows of smaller craft lined the walls: fighters, bombers, and transport vessels. But what caught his attention were the humans themselves. Captain Sarah Chen waited at the airlock, flanked by her senior officers. She was smaller than Zekthara had expected, standing barely 6 feet tall compared to his own 8-foot frame. Her species looked fragile, with thin skin and no natural armor or weapons. Yet something in her dark eyes made the veteran commander's combat instincts stir uneasily. "Welcome aboard the UES Indomitable, Commander Zekthara," Captain Chen said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. "I'm Captain Chen. My crew and I are at your disposal for this inspection." Zekthara gripped her small hand carefully, surprised by its firmness. "Thank you, Captain. The Coalition appreciates your cooperation. We're hoping to understand how your forces achieved victory against the Krell." A slight smile crossed Chen's face. "Understanding humans isn't easy, Commander. But you're welcome to try. Where would you like to begin?" "The weapons systems, if you please. Our sensors detected massive energy discharges during the battle, but we couldn't identify the source." Chen nodded and gestured down a wide corridor. "Right this way. Though I should warn you, human military doctrine might seem unusual compared to what you're used to." As they walked through the ship, Zekthara noted the corridors were surprisingly wide and tall. Emergency stations were positioned every 50 meters, each containing breathing apparatus, medical supplies, and what appeared to be personal weapons. The lighting was bright and harsh compared to most species' preferences. "Your ship seems built for rapid movement," Zekthara observed. "Most warships prioritize armor over mobility in corridors." "Humans don't like being trapped," Chen replied simply. "We prefer having options." They reached the primary weapons control center, where Chen's weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, waited beside a massive holographic display. The tactical screen showed the ship's armament in 3 dimensions, and Zekthara's eyes widened. "By the void," breathed Lieutenant Vashti. "Commander, look at those numbers." The Indomitable carried over 400 weapon systems: plasma cannons, railguns, missile launchers, point defense arrays, and dozens of weapon types Zekthara didn't recognize, filled every available space on the ship's hull. Most Coalition vessels carried perhaps 50 weapons total. "This is impossible," Zekthara said. "The power requirements alone would exceed your reactor capacity by a factor of 10. Rodriguez grinned. That's what the Krell thought too. Show him the main guns, Captain? Chen nodded. External view, please. The hologram shifted to show the ship's forward section. What Zeke Thara had taken for standard heavy plasma cannons were revealed to be something else entirely. 4 massive barrels extended from the ship's prow, each one larger than his entire inspection vessel. Kinetic accelerators, Chen explained. We call them MAC guns, magnetic acceleration cannons. They fire solid projectiles at 30% of light speed. Zeke Thara felt his throat sacs constrict. Solid projectiles? At relativistic velocity, the energy release on impact would be equivalent to antimatter warheads, yes, Rodriguez finished. But much harder to intercept or deflect. Krell bioships are tough. But they're still made of matter. Hit them hard enough and fast enough, and they come apart just like anything else. The inspection team spent the next 4 hours examining the weapons systems. Each revelation was more disturbing than the last. The humans had developed ammunition that could penetrate any known armor, guidance systems that could track targets through dimensional shifts, and defensive arrays that could intercept incoming fire with 97% accuracy. But it wasn't just the technology that unsettled Zeke Thara. It was the philosophy behind it. Every system was designed with one purpose: to destroy the enemy as efficiently as possible. There were no provisions for capture, no stunning weapons, no non-lethal options. Human military technology existed solely to kill. Captain Chen, Zeke Thara said as they finished the weapons tour. These systems are comprehensive. But surely you carry standard coalition emergency beacons? Surrender protocols? Chen's expression hardened slightly. Commander, human warships don't surrender. We don't have those systems because we don't use them. But what if you're overwhelmed, outgunned? Then we fight harder. The simple words carried a weight that made Zeke Thara's scales ripple. He was beginning to understand why the Krell had been so completely defeated, but the knowledge frightened him more than he cared to admit. Perhaps we could examine your defensive systems next, he suggested. Of course. Though I think you'll find our approach to defense somewhat unconventional as well. As they moved deeper into the ship, Zeke Thara caught sight of human crew members going about their duties. They moved with a purposeful efficiency he'd never seen in other species. No wasted motion, no casual conversation. Each person focused entirely on their assigned task. More unsettling was how they looked at him. Not with hostility exactly, but with the calculating gaze of predators sizing up potential threats. Even the smaller humans, the ones who couldn't possibly pose a physical danger to his armored form, watched him with that same cold assessment. Your crew seems very disciplined, he commented. Chen glanced back at him. We're at war, Commander. Have been for 3 years now. War changes people, but the conflict with the Krell is over. You won. Chen stopped walking and turned to face him fully. Commander, respectfully, you don't understand humans very well yet. The Krell were just one enemy. There will be others. There always are. Something in her tone made Zeke Thara's combat instincts scream warnings. This wasn't the voice of someone celebrating victory. This was the voice of someone preparing for the next battle. How many wars has humanity fought? He asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. Chen resumed walking. In recorded history? Thousands. We've been fighting each other for our entire existence. As a species, the Krell were just the first time we had a common external enemy. You fought each other constantly, until we reached the stars and found bigger threats to worry about. Come on. Let me show you our defensive systems. I think you'll find them educational. The ship's defensive control center was unlike anything Zeke Thara had encountered in his 30 years of military service. Banks of monitoring stations surrounded a central command platform, each screen displaying different aspects of the ship's protection systems. But what dominated the room was a massive 3-dimensional tactical display showing the space around the Indomitable in perfect detail. This is our Combat Information Center, Chen explained. Every human warship has one. It coordinates all defensive and offensive operations simultaneously. Lieutenant Commander Singh, the ship's defensive systems officer, gestured to the display. We track everything within a 50 million kilometer sphere around our position. Every piece of debris, every energy signature, every gravitational anomaly. Zekthara studied the readout with growing amazement. The system was tracking over 14 million objects simultaneously, from massive asteroids down to particles no larger than dust grains. The processing power required for this level of awareness must be enormous. Human brains are good at pattern recognition, Singh replied. We built our computers to think like us. Multiple parallel processing cores, each one specialized for different threat categories. Show him the point defense network, Chen suggested. The tactical display zoomed in on the Indomitable itself. Zekthara had noticed the numerous small turrets covering the ship's hull during his external inspection, but now he could see their true scope. Thousands of automated weapon systems dotted every surface, creating overlapping fields of fire that covered every possible approach angle. Each turret can track and engage up to 50 targets simultaneously, Singh explained. Total system capacity is just over 2 million intercepts per minute. Vashti's translator unit struggled with the numbers. 2 million? Per minute? That's more firepower than most coalition fleets possess in total. Humans don't like being hit, Chen said simply. We prefer to destroy incoming threats before they reach us. Zekthara was beginning to see a pattern in human military thinking that both fascinated and terrified him. Captain, your defensive philosophy seems to be offense-based. You don't absorb damage, you prevent it entirely. Correct. Taking damage means crew casualties. We don't accept casualties if we can avoid them. But surely some damage is inevitable in combat? That's why we have armor, shields, redundant systems. Chen's expression grew distant. Commander, how many crew members did you lose in your last major engagement? Zekthara thought back to the Battle of Rigel 6. 43 killed, 120 wounded. Standard casualties for that type of action. Standard for you, maybe. We lost 6 crew members defeating the entire Krell armada. The silence that followed was deafening. 6 casualties. Against an enemy that had destroyed entire coalition fleets. How is that possible? Zekthara whispered. Because we don't fight fair, Chen replied. Would you like to see our intelligence gathering systems? The next stop was the ship's Information Warfare Center, where teams of humans sat before banks of monitoring equipment. The room hummed with electronic activity as dozens of operators processed incoming data streams. Every human ship carries a full electronic warfare suite, explained Commander Torres, the ship's intelligence officer. We intercept and analyze all enemy communications, hack their computer systems, and jam their sensors. Zekthara watched the operators work. One screen showed what appeared to be Krell ship schematics, complete with detailed vulnerability analyses. Another displayed communication intercepts dating back months before the battle. You were intercepting Krell transmissions? But their bioships use quantum-encrypted neural networks. They're supposed to be impossible to decode. Torres smiled coldly. Nothing is impossible to decode if you understand the underlying principles. We spent 2 years studying captured Krell biomatter samples, learning how their neural networks function. Once we understood the biological basis of their communications, breaking their encryption was just a matter of time. You studied their biology to break their codes? We study everything about our enemies. Biology, psychology, culture, history, weaknesses, fears. Information is the most powerful weapon in human arsenal. Another operator called out. Commander Torres, we're picking up some interesting traffic from the Coalition inspection ship. Shall I run a full analysis? Torres glanced at Captain Chen, who nodded slightly. Proceed. But passive monitoring only. Our guests are here peacefully. Zekthara felt his blood chill. They were scanning his ship. Right now. While he stood here talking to them. You're analyzing our communications? We analyze everything. Torres replied, matter-of-factly. It's not personal, Commander. It's just what we do. Your ship systems are quite sophisticated, by the way. Coalition military engineering is impressive. The casual way Torres discussed violating their privacy was somehow more unsettling than any threat. These humans treated intelligence gathering like breathing. Automatic. Constant. Essential. Captain Chen, Zekthara said carefully. Your crew seems very focused on combat operations. What about scientific research? Cultural exchange? Peaceful exploration? Chen was quiet for a moment. Commander, do you know what human space looked like before the Krell invasion? I'm afraid not. We had 37 colony worlds, research stations, farming planets, mining operations, places where human families lived normal, peaceful lives. Her voice grew harder. The Krell destroyed 14 of them before we could mount an effective defense. 4 billion human civilians died in the first 6 months of the war. Zekthara felt the weight of those numbers. 4 billion. More than the total population of most coalition member species. We learned something important during those first attacks, Chen continued. Peace is a luxury you can only afford when you're strong enough to defend it. So yes, we focus on combat operations. Because the alternative is extinction. But surely now that the war is over. The war isn't over, Commander. The Krell were just the beginning. Our intelligence services have identified 17 other potential threats in nearby space. Some of them are already moving against coalition borders. And, as if to emphasize her point, an alarm chimed softly throughout the ship. The crew's response was immediate and coordinated. Every human moved to their station with practiced efficiency, and within seconds the entire ship had shifted from routine operation to combat readiness. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported the sensor operator. Single vessel, unknown configuration. Range 4 million kilometers, and closing. Captain Chen moved to the central command platform. Analysis? Ship design doesn't match any known species in our database. Hull composition suggests advanced metallurgy. Energy signature indicates weapons charging. Zekthara watched in amazement as the human crew prepared for potential combat. No panic, no confusion, no wasted motion. Each person knew exactly what to do, and did it without hesitation. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Indomitable. Chen broadcast. You are approaching a coalition inspection operation. Please state your intentions. The response came in a harsh, guttural language that Zekthara didn't recognize. His universal translator struggled for a moment before providing a rough interpretation. Weak prey things must flee or be consumed. We claim this space for the Devourer Hive. Well, Chen said calmly, that's unfortunate. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. The ship transformed around them. Blast doors sealed, emergency lighting activated, and the steady hum of charging weapons filled the air. Zekthara realized he was about to witness human combat doctrine firsthand. Captain, he said urgently. Perhaps we should attempt negotiation? The coalition has protocols for first contact situations. Chen looked at him with something that might have been pity. Commander, they just threatened to eat us. In my experience, beings who open conversation with cannibalistic threats aren't interested in negotiation. The unknown ship was now visible on the main screen. A grotesque amalgamation of organic and mechanical components that dwarfed even the massive human battleship. Weapon ports opened along its hull like festering wounds. Sir, reported the weapons officer. Enemy vessel is charging some kind of bioplasma cannon. Estimated time to firing solution. 30 seconds. Chen nodded. Fire control. You are authorized to engage. Target their weapon systems first. Aye, Captain. Firing. The Indomitable's main gun spoke with a voice like thunder. 4 relativistic projectiles crossed the intervening space in the blink of an eye, striking the alien vessel's forward section with the force of small suns. The enemy ship's bioplasma cannon vanished in a burst of vaporized metal and flesh. Target's main weapon destroyed, the weapons officer reported. Secondary systems coming online. Finish it, Chen ordered. What followed was not a battle. It was an execution. The human ship's point defense network engaged dozens of incoming projectiles simultaneously, while the main guns systematically destroyed the alien vessel piece by piece. Within 3 minutes, nothing remained but expanding debris and ionized gas. "Stand down from red alert," Chen announced. "Damage report." "No damage to report, Captain. All systems nominal." Chen turned to Zekthara, whose scaled hide had turned pale with shock. "I'm sorry you had to see that, Commander. But as I said, there are always more enemies." Zekthara stared at the empty space where the alien ship had been. A vessel larger than anything in the Coalition fleet, destroyed in minutes with casual efficiency. "What were they?" he managed to ask. "Unknown species. Probably scouts for a larger force. We'll analyze the debris and add them to our threat database." Chen's tone was matter-of-fact, as if the complete annihilation of a starship was routine, which, Zekthara was beginning to realize, it probably was for humans. The inspection continued in stunned silence. Zekthara's team went through the motions of examining human technology, but their hearts were no longer in it. What they had witnessed changed everything. The Coalition's understanding of human capabilities had been woefully inadequate. "Captain," Zekthara said as they toured the ship's engineering section, "I must ask you something directly. How many ships like this does humanity possess?" Chen exchanged glances with her chief engineer before answering. "The Indomitable is a Dreadnought-class battleship. We currently operate 47 vessels of this class. 47. Each one capable of destroying fleets single-handedly." Zekthara felt his world shift on its axis. The Coalition's combined naval forces couldn't match even a quarter of human firepower. "And smaller vessels?" Lieutenant Vashti asked, though her voice suggested she dreaded the answer. 200 cruisers, 600 destroyers, 1,500 frigates, and approximately 4,000 support vessels, the chief engineer replied cheerfully. "Plus our planetary defense networks and orbital fortresses." Zekthara's legs felt weak. The Coalition was looking at a military force that could conquer the entire galaxy if they chose to, and yet humans presented themselves as peaceful explorers seeking friendship and cooperation. "Why haven't you conquered us?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. Captain Chen paused in her explanation of the ship's power systems. "Conquered you?" "Commander, why would we want to do that? Your military superiority is obvious. You could subjugate any species in the galaxy. What would be the point? Conquest creates enemies. We prefer allies, but surely the temptation." Chen's expression grew serious. "Commander, humans learned something important during our early history. Empires built on conquest always fall. Always. You can't rule unwilling populations forever. Eventually, they rebel. And when they do, they remember every injustice you committed." She gestured around the engineering bay. "We built all this to defend ourselves, not to attack others. Yes, we could probably conquer the Coalition if we wanted to. But then what? We'd spend the rest of our existence fighting rebellions and insurgencies. We'd become the very thing we built these ships to defend against. Then what do humans want? Peace, trade, scientific cooperation, the chance to explore the galaxy without someone trying to eat us every few weeks." Zekthara was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, I need to ask you about human combat doctrine. What we witnessed earlier. Your crew destroyed that alien ship with such efficiency, such coldness. You think we're monsters?" Chen said. "It wasn't a question. I think you're terrifying. Your people approach warfare like it's an engineering problem to be solved." Chen nodded slowly. "In a way, that's exactly what it is. War is applied physics and psychology. You identify your objectives, analyze your enemy's capabilities, and then apply force in the most efficient manner possible. But don't you feel anything when you kill?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Chen was quiet for so long that Zekthara thought she might not answer. "Commander, do you know why humans cry?" she asked finally. "I'm not familiar with that behavior. It's a stress response. When we experience extreme emotion, grief, joy, frustration, our bodies produce tears. It's involuntary." She turned to look at him directly. "I cried for 3 days after the Battle of Kepler 442. Not because of the enemies we killed, but because 6 of my crew members didn't make it home. Rubering, you mourn your enemies? We mourn what war costs us. Every battle, every death, every choice to use violence instead of words, it changes us. Makes us a little bit harder, a little bit colder. We don't kill because we enjoy it, Commander. We kill because the alternative is letting our own people die. The inspection team was shown to the ship's medical bay next. Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez, the chief medical officer, guided them through facilities that seemed almost absurdly over-equipped for a warship. Full surgical suites, genetic therapy labs, psychological treatment centers, she explained. We can handle everything from battlefield trauma to chronic diseases. Zekthara examined the equipment with professional interest. His own species had excellent medical technology, but the human systems were far more advanced. These facilities are quite comprehensive. More than most coalition hospitals. War is hard on people, Doctor, Vasquez said simply, not just physically, but mentally. We've learned that taking care of our people isn't just morally right, it's tactically necessary. Healthy, well-adjusted crew members fight better. How do you maintain morale during extended conflicts? Honestly, we don't always succeed. 3 years of war has pushed everyone to their limits, but we focus on why we're fighting, not just what we're fighting against. She showed them the ship's memorial wall. A long corridor lined with photographs of fallen crew members. Thousands of faces looked out from the displays, each one representing someone who had died defending humanity. We remember them, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. Every single one. Their names, their families, their dreams, because if we forget why their sacrifice mattered, then we become the kind of people who aren't worth defending. The final stop on the inspection was Captain Chen's ready room, a small office adjacent to the bridge. The space was spartanly furnished, but what decorations existed told a story that made Zekthara's blood run cold. Battle honors covered one wall. Citations for victories against the Krell, the Void Hunters, the Shadow Fleet, and dozens of other enemies. The Dart of the Jutace, as applied. The 4070-43 people, and WeCanRoll.com. Each plaque represented another species that had underestimated humanity and paid the price. Captain, Zekthara said carefully, how many different enemies has humanity fought? Chen poured herself a cup of coffee, the bitter stimulant that humans seem to consume constantly. Since we reached the stars? 47 different species or factions. Some were misunderstandings that got resolved diplomatically. Others, she gestured, at the battle honors. 47 different species. She gestured at the battle honors. Others weren't interested in talking. 47 conflicts in 50 years. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Commander. We learned that quickly. Zekthara studied the battle records more carefully. Each engagement showed the same pattern. Human forces outnumbered, human victory decisive, enemy casualties catastrophic. It was as if humanity had perfected the art of war itself. How do you do it? He asked. How do you win against impossible odds? Chen sat behind her desk, cradling her coffee cup. Would you like the technical answer, or the philosophical one? Both. Technically, we win because we prepare better, fight smarter, and never give up. We study our enemies, exploit their weaknesses, and hit them harder than they expect. And philosophically, Chen's expression grew distant. We win because losing means extinction. Every human in this fleet knows that if we fail, our families die. Our children die. Our entire species disappears from the galaxy. That knowledge gives us strength that our enemies can't understand. She stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the starfield beyond. Commander, do you know what humans call our home system? Earth, I believe. Sol, it means sun, in one of our ancient languages. But that's not what our military calls it. We call it last stand. Because that's what Earth will be if we ever lose a war completely. The last place where humans make their final stand against extinction. The weight of those words settled over the room like a shroud. Zekthara finally understood what made humans so dangerous. It wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Captain, I need to ask you one final question. If the Coalition tried to stop you, to limit your military expansion because we felt threatened, what would happen? Chen turned back to him, and for a moment her mask of professional courtesy slipped. Zekthara saw something in her eyes that made his combat instincts scream warnings. Commander. Respectfully. That would be a very bad decision. But surely you wouldn't attack Coalition forces? We're allies. We are. And we want to stay that way. But if the Coalition tried to disarm us, or limit our ability to defend ourselves? Chen shook her head. Humans have a saying. Peace through strength. We'll be peaceful as long as we're strong enough to choose peace. And if that choice is taken away, then the galaxy will learn why 47 different species have tried to destroy humanity, and why all of them failed. The inspection was complete. Zekthara and his team returned to their ship in contemplative silence. As they prepared to depart, Captain Chen's final words echoed in his mind. Commander, she had said as they shook hands goodbye. I hope your report helps the Coalition understand humans better. We want to be friends. We really do. But friendship has to be a choice both sides make freely. Now, as Zekthara watched the human battleship fade into the distance, he struggled with how to write his report. How do you tell an entire galactic civilization that they've just met their new apex predators? How do you explain that the friendly, cooperative humans are also the most dangerous species in known space? His communications officer interrupted his thoughts. Commander, we're receiving priority transmissions from Coalition Command. Intelligence reports of unknown fleets massing in the outer rim sectors. Zekthara felt a chill run through his scaled hide. More enemies. More threats to galactic peace. And now he knew exactly who the Coalition would turn to for protection. Set course for Coalition headquarters, he ordered. And prepare a priority message for the Security Council. Tell them we need to schedule an emergency session. What should I tell them the meeting is about, sir? Zekthara looked back at the human ship one last time before it disappeared into hyperspace. Tell them we need to discuss our alliance with humanity. We're going to need their help, because after seeing what humans could do, Zekthara had realized something that terrified him more than any weapon or warship. The galaxy was full of dangers that even the Coalition couldn't handle alone, but humanity could, and that meant the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted forever. The age of human dominance had begun, whether the rest of the galaxy was ready for it or not. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Zekthara began composing his report. The Coalition needed to understand what they were dealing with. Not just the most advanced military force in known space, but a species that had turned warfare into an art form and peace into a weapon. The humans were offering friendship. The wise choice was to accept it, because the alternative was learning firsthand why 47 other species had tried to stand against humanity, and why none of them had survived the experience.